So race number 3 of the weekend, the final round in this year's Radical Challenge Championship, and we are here of course at Snetterton on the 300 circuit with a 40-minute race to look forward to. Steve Burgess already this year's champion, Jack Lang there in second and Joe Stables third. We'll have to wait and see if any of those do change in this final race. It looks pretty much set in stone. For this final race, there is the addition of pit stops as well. It's going to be Bradley Smith, who starts from pole position on car number 4. Second is going to be number 7, which is Jack Lang. And then back on row number 2 is going to be the likes of number 2, which is Steve Burgess and Brian Caldwell. So we're all set for the rolling start then in this final race of the season. Final preparations for the drivers just to get the warmth into the tyres, into the brakes, make sure they're all ready and good for the first turn in at Ritchie's Corner. As I said, row 2 complete there. Row 3 sees the likes of John McLeod. Mark Richards starting well off again in 6th position, but can he make any progress from there in this final race? Nice build up to the start of this one. They'll be side by side up towards the line. As soon as those red lights go out, we'll be good to go. And 40 minutes of action will be underway. Who's going to storm up to the first corner first? Lights out and away we go. It's going to be a good start from the outside from Jack Lang. Can he sweep across and get ahead of Bradley Smith in towards the right-hander? Have to wait and see as the rest of the charging pack come through. Oh, slightly wide there. In fact, 2 cars off. Round they go in. Near enough, good formation there. 52, Mark Richards, the man we just mentioned, unfortunately hits the barrier, and number 10 follows him through, John Caldwell, but doesn't make any contact with the Armcos. They'll both be able to rejoin, but one with a little bit more damage than the other, unfortunately. So as the leaders work their way around, you can see the smoke in the background there from the recovering 52 car of Mark Richards, but it is Jack Lang who leads the way then, down towards Agostini for the first time. Bradley Smith already looking to try and make his way through. He goes to the outside line because Jack Lang has gone very defensive, 3 wide behind as they turn away through the left-hander. One of those involved was Jack Manchester by the looks of it in car number 15. I think John McLeod as well could have been within that little melee. I don't think he's made the best of starts in this third and final race, so John McLeod has got work to do throughout the next 40 minutes. But it is our leader Jack Lang still out front. Second place for Bradley Smith. Third place number 2, champion, which is Steve Burgess, and then the rest of the pack turn their way through. A slight gap now in the middle of the field, probably one due to the fact we've lost Mark Richards and the likes of the number 10 car, which is John Caldwell. Have broke the field up now just to give us 2 separate trains. The next one being led by not quite Joe Stables. You've got number 5 in there though, which is the Paul Allen and Jason Redding car. They turn their way down through the left-hander at Brundle and Nelson. And you've also put into that mix as well Brian Murphy, who started a long way back, unfortunately, 13th on the grids. But again, Brian Murphy pretty rapid when these races get going, so let's see if he can make any progress through the field. Here comes our leaders though, Jack Lang and Bradley Smith as close as ever now. Bradley's got a great run through the final corner, going to be looking to make a move up towards Ritchie's. Jack Lang again hugs the pit wall as they turn in towards the first corner. Which way can Bradley go? He's going to look for the outside line, but whichever way Bradley goes, Jack will go as well to try and keep that door shut as best as possible. Steve Burgess a little bit distant now in 3rd place, but of course if these two tangle, he'll be the best man to try and jump his way through. So watch out for Steve there in 3rd. Behind them at the minute in 4th place is number 66, Brian Caldwell. Had a win earlier on in the day, but since then hasn't got back to the top step of the podium as the leaders turn their way through Palmer, already onto the back straight down towards the left-hander Agostini. Got Jack Manchester in the mix here as well, which is good to see as Brian Caldwell locks up. Jack Manchester follows as well, but it was the bigger lock-up from Brian Caldwell, which in turn has lost him a little bit of time to the top 3 now. So they'll start to pull away on this second lap as they work their way through Hamilton and down towards Oggies. Can Bradley Smith find a way through? He is still as close as ever, but Jack Lang putting up a great defensive drive for now. Steve Burgess has got himself a little bit closer on this lap, so he's done a good first half of the lap, which will see him now onto the tail of the top 2. Not quite in the tow at the minute though, so he'll find himself still a few car lengths back as they turn through Brundle and Nelson. There's Brian Caldwell in 4th, Jack Manchester in 5th, John McLeod down in 6th place, and 7th you can see the number 11 machine there, which will have Aaron Bailey behind the wheel for this first stint. There goes Joe Stables, a man who did before the weekend have a chance of taking the runners-up spot in the championship, but for now that has fallen away for Joe Stables, and behind him number 64 at the minute, which is the car of Brian and Tom Harvey, which will have Tom Harvey at the wheel for this first half. Of course, the pit stop window opens midway through for a very short time, gives you 2 or 3 laps to get your cars in. Driver change if you have a second drive up, if not you'll stay aboard and you'll just get your minimum time. There's also success seconds which are added to each round as well, so the better you do, the more time you have to spend within the pit lane. The likes of Bradley Smith and Jack Lang have had a good season, so they'll be there a little bit longer than the rest. But if they can build up enough of a lead over the rest of the pack, they should be good to go and rejoin where they leave the track. There goes 57, which is the car of Brian Murphy. Finds himself at the minute down outside the top 10, so a lot of work for Brian to do. Here come our leaders though, down towards Agostini. Jack Lang has just been allowed to breathe for a few laps. Bradley Smith hasn't quite challenged on this occasion, but you can bet your money that Bradley Smith will give it a good go very, very shortly. He's getting closer and closer. Steve Burgess again, just dropping back slightly there. He's now around about a second adrift of the top two. 1.5 seconds last time round. Jack Lang again, just keeping himself on his tiptoes there, just to make sure Bradley Smith doesn't come through as they work their way as one pretty much down the back straight in towards Brundle and Nelson. They're about to go, and Jack Lang with lights on, Bradley Smith with his lights on as well. Steve Burgess has decided to not put his on as of yet, but of course as the traffic becomes more apparent, which it will in this 40-minute race, there'll be a few flashes from the leaders just to make the back markers aware they're coming up behind them. Steve Burgess right towards the edge of the tarmac there, just about got away with getting back onto the track before it ran out. There goes Brian Caldwell. John McLeod is starting to get closer there to Jack Manchester, so that's going to be a battle that starts to build up between 5th and 6th. This meantime is the battle a little bit lower down, just inside the top 20 by the looks of it. That's number 9, which is the car of Gary Patterson, who started 19th, and Barry Liversidge in car number 6 as well. He's the man who's hassling him at this stage of the race. There goes Jack Manchester, the two white cars together for now. John McLeod, the man who's getting slightly quicker, he's brought that gap down to 7/10 of a second at the end of that lap, as the top three head their way on towards the short straight, down towards Agostini. Again, Bradley Smith not too far back, but Jack Lang doing enough for now just to keep him at bay here. So Bradley Smith, of course, there's a long race ahead of him. Can't try anything too eager too early on. You can always lose the race in the first few laps, but you can't win it. That's always the old adage of motor racing. Here comes another good battle as well. This is between number 80, which is the Peter Tyler and Tom Gladys car. Looks like Peter Tyler is the man who started. The man behind there is then the number 5 machine, which is Paul Allen. Those two cars go down towards Hamilton once more. Again, nothing to choose between them. A great little battle going on outside the top 10. Wherever you look, as we've been saying within Radical Racing, there are always battles to choose between. Slightly wide there though, that time from Peter in that number 80 machine. And then Paul Allen will get closer and closer onto that back straight as they work their way down towards the end of the Bentley Straight. Two black cars running together as well. That's number 64, which is Brian Harvey. And then behind him you've got number 95, which is the car which has been driven solo all weekend. That's Joe Stables. And at the minute those two cars find themselves a little bit lower down the order, 8th and 9th places within this fight. On towards another lap go our race leaders then, Jack Lang and Bradley Smith. That time through, the gap shrunk only slightly. There's nothing to choose over these few laps, 0.4 of a second between the top two. But again, that changes at every single corner as Bradley Smith is late on the brakes. He closes onto the rear of Jack Lang. Then, of course, as they accelerate through the corners, Jack Lang is able to pull out the gap once more. Here's this ongoing battle between the two cars of Peter Tyler and number 5 there, Paul Allen, but nothing changes through Richie's corner on that occasion. Down towards Agostini, Bradley Smith takes a slightly different line that time. Jack Lang went for the wide approach, whereas Bradley Smith was very tight to the apex there to try and get through, but Jack was wary of it. He didn't leave anything for Bradley to take away there. So again, the gap remains pretty much the same as it was at the beginning of the lap as the two cars go through the right-hander at Oggies. And that's a very crucial part of the circuit because Oggies then leads into Williams, and you're continuing to build your speed here. Once you get into Williams, you get the long Bentley Straight, which, as we can see, does give off a lot of towing. As down the inside line, tries to look there, the number 6 machine, which is Barry Liversidge, but Gary Patterson not quite giving way there, so they stay in their respective positions. Down in around about 17th and 18th places by the looks of it. They're on the tail of Jason Rashova, and also in there as well is Elliot Goodman in car number 28. So that's a four-way scrap, working its way on towards the back straight once more. Doesn't look like Barry Liversidge is close enough to do anything on this occasion. Just starting to pull away from Elliot Goodman and also the number 20 car there of Mark Crader. So they're starting to get out of the reach of those two behind. And looking up the road, it looks like we've got the car of number 99 that sits there as well. So the number 99 car far enough ahead. That's the machine of Konstantin Gukiev. There goes Brian Murphy then in car number 57, starting to catch up now with Peter Tyler, who has just dropped off the rear now of Paul Allen. So one red car has got away as Bradley Smith. You just saw it in the front of the picture, trying to get down the inside of Jack Lang once more. I wonder if he's managed to get the job done. Jack Lang that time through led by, again, just around about 0.4 of a second. And I can tell you just by looking in the distance there, Jack Lang is still just ahead in the orange machine. So he is still leading the race. This is the next fight that we now focus on, which is between Jack Manchester in car number 15, trying to chase down the number 66 car, which is done. He's going to go for a move on the inside line there. Brian Cordwell left the door open. But Jack Manchester wasn't quite quick enough to dive down and get the place away, but he's in a very strong position now to try and do it at the end of the Bentley Straight. And of course, if those two keep battling, there's going to be the number 14 machine to watch out for as well, which is going to be John McLeod. He's been on the podium on 2 occasions so far this weekend. There is the battle still between number 9 Gary Patterson and Barry Liversidge, although Gary Patterson now is just about starting to pull away. 3 or 4 car lengths between those two. Black and white flag being shown to a driver, which is just a warning flag, either for track limits or driving standards. That's been shown to someone on that occasion. But Jack Lang and Bradley Smith, still your top two, nothing to choose between them. Very shortly the pit stop window is about to open, which means we may get an early pit stop from one of them, or they may decide to stay together and try and battle this out. Jack Manchester now looks for a lunge down the inside. He's got it done on the number 66 car, Brian Cordwell. I'm sure he saw that one coming, and Jack Manchester wasn't going to back out of it, so Jack now goes through into 4th position. But you can see the extent of how far they are back in this race. The top 3 have gone off. Hell for leather pretty much, and these 3 have been left to fight it out. Brian Caldwell is going to try and attack back now. Jack Manchester gets a big lock up in towards Agostini. Does that mean he runs wide? It does. The tyres will be a little bit more flat spotted now as Brian Caldwell powers his way down towards Hamilton. And as we said, watch out for John McLeod here. He is a watching brief for now, but he's getting closer and closer, and very shortly to pounce on these 2 as well. But for now, Jack Manchester has gone through. That puts him up into 4th position. Brian Caldwell now drops down into 5th. And still with them in 6th place is going to be the car of John McLeod. So they head down the Bentley Straight once more. Just in the background you can see as well number 11, which is the car of Aaron Bailey. He'll be handing it over to his brother Lee for the second half of this race. But can Brian Caldwell do anything about Jack Manchester? And of course, it's very fresh in the mind of what Jack has just done. So let's see if Brian can retaliate in possibly the same part of the track up towards Wilson Hairpin. They'll go very shortly. Although Brian Caldwell already has fallen back here and starting to feel the pressure now from number 14, which is John McLeod. Still feeling the pressure out front is Jack Lang in car number 7. And again, Bradley Smith is ever closer. The gap down to less than 0.3 of a second. He goes for the outside line in towards the hairpin on this occasion. He'll try and sweep then to the outside at Palmer, which again should give him a nice run down in towards the left-hander at Agostini. But every way that Bradley is trying to look here, it's not really working out, is it? Because Jack Lang, been around in the Radical Championship just for this year. He was a former Formula 4 racer before it turned into the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship for this year. But there you go, Bradley Smith just again trying at every opportunity to get through. He won't try too hard, of course, because as we said, the pit stop's still to come and still the second half of the race to unfold as well, so it could work into his favour. Depends who can hold the fatigue as much as possible. Jack Lang then on towards the right-hander at Williams. Bradley Smith there in second now with lights off, so Jack Lang is the only man with his lights still on. Slightly wide there, the sparks start to fly at the later part of the day here at Snetterton. And we can now see further 2 cars. Peter Tyler and Brian Murphy continue to fight as well. Not quite with inside the top 10 just yet. They get very, very close to it. They've got number 5 car of Paul Allen up the road, but these 2 trying to get inside that top 10. But at the minute, it's just outside for Peter Tyler and also the number 57 car of Brian Murphy. As back to the lead as we go. Lights ablaze once more from Bradley Smith, who's getting a little bit more threatening on the back now of Jack Lang, who tucks it nicely through Murray's. powers his way up towards the start-finish line on this occasion. Across the line they go. The gap just growing slightly on this occasion by the looks of it, and that's confirmed on the screen as well. Half a second now between the top two. Kind of very fine to the edge of the track there as well was Bradley Smith, almost running up the white line there. And of course, with the rain we had earlier in the day, the edge of the track might be a little bit damper than the actual track itself there. So Bradley Smith just flirting with the edge as the top two work their way then through. Palmer once more, Lang and Smith your top two. You'll see in the background very shortly as well, number 2 just flashing through there, which is Steve Burgess. He's now been left by the front runners, but he's not being caught by that man behind, which is still, for now, number 15, Jack Manchester, after he managed to pass the number 66 car of Brian Cordwell. Down towards Hamilton then go the top two. And before too much longer, the pit stop window will be open as Bradley Smith again gets very close to the edge of the track there. He went up the inside of Jack Lang, but he kept to his line, which meant he pulls out a little bit more of a gap then onto the Bentley straight once more. Down they come. And again, it doesn't look like Bradley Smith is quite close enough here, so he lets Jack Lang do his thing. Turns left through Brundle. The second part now, Nelson, as we are in Nelson's county of Norfolk. Down through the bomb hole. Of course, an old airfield is Snetterton, so that's why that is named after the old bombers that used to come through. Down in towards Murray's. Here's Bradley Smith's chance once again. A big lock-up on this occasion, though. Manages to get it stopped in time. Doesn't lose too much ground to Jack Lang, who in turn ran slightly wide there. Just kicked up a very, very small amount of dust on the exit of Murray's. Can Bradley Smith again try anything up towards the first corner at Ritchie's. Jack Lang sits in the middle of the road. Again, Bradley Smith not quite close enough there to challenge. So through they go, on towards the Wilson hairpin. Oh, and a slight mistake there. Jack Lang runs wide. The opportunity is gifted to Bradley Smith. So Bradley goes through. And as you can expect, needs no second invitation. So Bradley now leads the race for the first time in this final race of the weekend. But can Jack Lang respond as they work their way then down the short straight in towards Agostini? It's now Bradley Smith's chance to go defensive here, because Jack Lang has definitely held the pace all race long so far, but you could also say that he's been a slight cork in the bottle here just to keep Bradley Smith at bay. Rain light now comes onto the back of Bradley Smith's car as they work their way through Hamilton, and already Bradley Smith has pulled out a good 3 or 4 car lengths here, so Jack Lang is starting to fall adrift. He won't probably fall into the clutches of Steve Burgess, but he'll need to keep as close to Bradley Smith as possible and then see what happens in the second half of the race. Of course, Bradley Smith's teammate, Evgeny Khrushchev, should be the man to take over that car for the second half of this race. So we'll see what happens when Evgeny gets him as they come now through Brundle and Nelson. Jack Lang still with the lights ablaze now, just trying to put off Bradley Smith as much as possible as they turn their way on towards the final couple of corners. Through Coram Curve and on towards the left-hander at Murray's. Let's see if Bradley Smith has opened up that gap far enough to keep Jack Lang at bay. I don't think it'll be close enough for Jack Lang to respond up towards Ritchie's corner on this occasion. No, the gap is starting to grow there as they cross the line. 3/4 of a second is what the gap now sits at, and you can just see on the pit wall there as well, the pit window has now opened in this final race of the weekend, the final race of the year in fact, for the Radical Challenge Championship. As running wide there is Peter Tyler. He'd been in front of number 57, Brian Murphy, for pretty much the whole of the race there, but one slight mistake again, with the Radicals being so tightly bunched. One mistake can lose you in some occasions quite a few places, but on this occasion just one for Peter Tyler. So he gets back onto the circuit as Bradley Smith works his way down towards the left-hander at Agostini. Jack Lang still pretty much there with him, but the gap you can just see gradually growing lap after lap at the minute. So Bradley Smith now getting into his stride, trying to set the fastest lap of the race as well. And there is, of course, an extra couple of points within this championship for the fastest lap. So that's what Bradley is going to go for. Not in contention, unfortunately, for this year's championship. Steve Burgess and Jack Lang, the top two within the championship for this year, pretty much settled before this weekend. So it's now just a free-for-all here, who can take the final wins of the season. Bradley Smith turns his way down off the Bentley straight. There is Steve Burgess in car number 2. Yet to be on the podium this weekend, but could this be the race where he gets there? He's looking pretty comfortable at the minute. There is Jack Manchester in 4th position in car number 15, and then behind a slight battle starting to emerge now. Brian Cordwell, as we said, pit stop window open, and the first of the takers is going to be Konstantin Gukiev, and also we saw in there a solo driver. Number 6 was Barry Liversidge, and our race leader has decided to come in pretty early as well, so the first possible opportunity. Bradley Smith is into the pit lane. You've got Joe Stables, number 95. And there has been, by the looks of it, no driver change. So Bradley Smith has decided, or the team have decided, to stick with Bradley. Probably the best opportunity to get a win here. So Evgeny Krychlev is going to sit out the rest of the race. So Bradley comes out of the pit lane, still in the car. And he's only just rejoined ahead of number 66, which is Brian Cordwell. But bear in mind, as we said, there are success seconds to be added to the pit stops. And of course, with Bradley Smith doing a really good job this year with a few wins, that means his time has been increased. With Brian Cordwell, not that many wins. His is the pure minimum to be in the pit lane. Also coming to the pits there is Gary Patterson in car number 9, again, who have to hand over to nobody. He's the man who does the full 40 minutes, and this is the man who also will do the full 40 minutes. Our race leader, of course, after being handed it by Bradley Smith after his pit stop, that is Jack Lang into the pits. So he is doing his driver change. Still sitting there is number 9, Gary Patterson. As through comes the squabble here. Steve Burgess has managed to get ahead of Bradley Smith after the pit stop, and this is Jack Lang rejoining the track. Can he manage to stay ahead or get back ahead of Bradley Smith? There's a lot of traffic to Bradley to work his way through. Steve Burgess is in the mix as well. There's Jack Lang in the distance, coming out ahead of the 2 front runners. So Jack Lang is going to get the lead of the race back here at Snetterton in the final race. And in fact, these 3 cars are now, by the looks of it, effectively going to be 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So you've got Jack Lang, who has come out in the lead of the race. Great job and a very quick pit stop. And of course not balked by any of the traffic out there. He rejoins in the lead. 2nd place will then be number 2 by the looks of it, which is our champion Steve Burgess. And then race leader before the pit stop, Bradley Smith, is now down into 3rd place. He's got a lot of work to do to try and get back onto terms with Jack Lang. First off, he's got to try and find a way past number 2 Steve Burgess here. So that's the fight for 2nd. Jack Manchester has come out in 4th position. And then behind that is going to be very shortly the number 4 car of Bradley Smith, as we said. And there out the pits went number 91, which was David Franklin. He finds himself down to the lower run-ins of the top 20. So there is Jack Manchester looking good at the minute. Could he possibly be a man to get himself onto the podium as well? He's got some strong challengers ahead of him who have all been lapping very, very quickly throughout this race. But Jack Manchester, fairly new to radicals, has been progressing round after round. He's been doing as much racing as he possibly can as well, not just within radicals, but other forms of racing, just to try and bolster his race licence. But Bradley Smith is the man who's looking the raciest for now. Steve Burgess is going to be under attack surely up towards Ritchie's on this occasion, as the top 3 head their way across the line now with 14 laps into the book. It's Jack Lang who leads by 1.4 seconds. Steve Burgess there in 2nd. Bradley Smith then is just 0.3 of a second back as they cross the line that time. Down through Ritchie's they head. Pretty much the same line from all of those 3. And David Franklin is very shortly to be put a lap down here by Jack Lang. Bradley Smith gets a great run through the Wilson hairpin. Down towards the left-hander at Palmer, who goes now to the outside line. Can he get a good cut back and head for a move at Agostini? Is on the outside line though through Palmer. There's David Franklin, which may just cause a bit of concern for Bradley Smith. He's got to have to squeeze Steve Burgess, and in fact he's already got the job done. So Bradley Smith on the exit of Palmer before they even hit Agostini has gone through and now moves himself up into 2nd place. So a great job there. He's now got to close down what's going to be a 2.5 gap on Jack Lang here, so he's got work to do. They'll be hoping that Steve Burgess doesn't retaliate in this fight for 2nd as they work their way through Oggies. There is Jack Lang, the race leader. There is now our new 2nd place man, Bradley Smith, and Steve Burgess there in 3rd. Jack Manchester was just in the process as well of working his way past the back marker of David Franklin, which is now done. So Jack Manchester safely through. Here's a good scrap going on as well. This is, again, just outside the top 10 as Joe Stables makes a big lunge down the inside line. Oh, and he makes contact with number 11, which is the Aaron Lee Bailey car, which somehow continues on its way. I wonder if there's more damage now to Joe Stables, but that was a massive lunge coming from Joe, and it all went horribly wrong, I'm afraid. Does he rejoin? Yes, he does. A little bit sluggish there. So is there more damage than what we can see? There might have been a bit of suspension damage on the right front, but of course these radicals hold up well. Joe Stables may just be able to continue within this race, so he gets himself back onto the track. Across the line then go the top two. The gap has come down that time then. 1.4 it was, of course. He's now down to 1.3 as Bradley Smith is on a charge. And of course, bear in mind, he's done a slightly quicker lap, and in the process he was working his way past Steve Burgess as well. So first, second and third almost as one. Bradley Smith still got work to do to try and catch the race leader Jack Lang. There's green flags on the exit of Hamilton. So is that possibly drama for Joe Stables, who has failed to get further than a corner after his incident with the Aaron Lee Bailey car? I think that may be the case. We'll have to wait and see as the leaders head through. Oh, and there's another spin there. That's from one of our front runners. That's Brian Cordwell, who's gone for a spin in car number 66, and that is up at the Wilson hairpin, and that is smack bang in the middle of the track there. Oh, and one of the cars nearly runs straight into the rear of Brian Cordwell. Brian's in a very precarious position there. You have to try and get out and across the track very quickly. Okay, it does mean though we get a safety car now, so with Brian Cordwell's car stuck in a very dangerous position, the marshals are going to go to work to recover that to a place of safety. What it does mean though, a very interesting race for us. It does close the top four, in fact the whole field together. Jack Lang will now have a very close Bradley Smith. In turn, he'll have Steve Burgess on his tail. Jack Manchester is also in the mix as well. And then behind them will be the number 91 car by the looks of it, which is going to be the car of David Franklin. Of course, that's a lap down. So it does mean John McLeod will be in 5th place. And there's a couple of other back markers in the way as well. But Brian Cordwell's car has been recovered, which is good, out of harm's way. And now it's up to Jack Lang to control the field. The safety car has bolted. That's going to head back into the pit lane as the lights at the top of the car have been extinguished. So this is Jack Lang's chance now to floor the throttle as soon as he gets the opportunity, which he does. But Bradley Smith is going to keep right with him on this restart. Steve Burgess made a slight mistake there, so he's going to be under attack from Jack Manchester up towards Ritchie's corner. But who's going to go for the attack early on as the green flags wave once more as the leaders head their way down towards Ritchie's? Not long left within the race as well, so Bradley Smith wants to get a move done. He's going to have to think on his feet pretty quickly here. Up towards Wilson hairpin they go. Let's see if Bradley Smith is going to try for a move as the rest of the pack turn their way through. Jack Lang goes defensive. Bradley Smith tries to get the cut back on the run down towards the left-hander at Palmer. Stand well out of harm's way there. Looked to be Andy Chittenden, who is a lap down, along with number 91 David Franklin. Both of those are now staying out of the way of the quicker runners. Here comes Jack Lang then, going again very defensive down towards Agostini. And Bradley Smith will try for a move around the outside line. He's very late on the brakes. He runs wide. The back end steps out. He tries to correct it, but in the process, he's lost 3 places there. Bradley Smith, what a shame. He tried for a move, which he could have probably waited for till the latter stage of this race, but he had to go for it. He wanted the place away. He wanted the lead, but in the end, Bradley Smith has made a mistake. Oh, and there's more drama there as well. 2 cars possibly that have made contact. That's Konstantin Gukiev in number 99 and Gary Patterson in car number 9. And as ever, very quickly, the marshals on the scene to try and recover those 2 cars. And of course, with Snetterton being a 3-mile track, they will have, I'm sure, plenty of time. Hopefully, no more safety cars before the end of the race. So the leader goes down, now on his own pretty much, Jack Lang. Steve Burgess has progressed up into 2nd place. Jack Manchester will find himself then on the podium for now, up there in 3rd place. Not a bad weekend for Jack whatsoever. 5th in the earlier race, and he was just inside the top 10 in the first race of the day as well. But Jack Lang leads, Steve Burgess 2nd, Jack Manchester up to 3rd place. 4th place will then be John McLeod, and Bradley Smith has recovered down in 5th place. But has he got enough time left within this race to make any progress on the front runners? Probably not now, because there is about 10 seconds left on the clock. And they're just going to squeeze one more lap out of this race as Bradley Smith challenges once again on John McLeod. What can he do about John as they work their way through Ritchie's corner? He gets a good run as the 2 cars have been recovered just in time for the leaders to head their way round on this last lap. Bradley Smith again tries for the outside line at Wilson on this occasion rather than Agostini. But John McLeod now is going to have to do a Jack Lang and be very defensive over the next 3/4 of this lap. So they work their way through Palmer, the leaders. 1st and 2nd, Jack Lang and Steve Burgess. Jack Manchester may just have enough in hand here to remain on the podium. And this may well be his first ever podium in the Radical Challenge Championship as well. So this will be a great end to the season for Jack. Hopefully a man who returns to the championship next year. But 4th place is yet to be settled between John McLeod and Bradley Smith. Just behind them at the minute is number 57, by the way. Brian Murphy has finally worked his way through the field, so he's going to finish inside the top 6 by the looks of it. But to be fair, Jack Lang is not yet comfortable in the lead, and he's not yet secured as our winner for the final round of the season, because Steve Burgess, this year's champion, is going to try and end in style. He's got probably 3 more corners to try and move. Brundle and Nelson will be the first corner, but not quite close enough there onto the rear of Jack Lang as they turn the way in towards the second part of the old S's. Down towards the bomb hole they head. In the background, still keeping an eye on what Bradley Smith is doing on John McLeod. But again, I think John McLeod may just have this one in the bag. It's very, very close as they work their way through the bomb hole for the final time. Here come our leaders though. Jack Lang, he's just got one braking zone to go now. Down through Murray's he turns on towards the centre straight. And Jack Lang, can he hold on ahead of Steve Burgess? He powers to the line. No wins this weekend for Jack Lang, but he'll round the season off in style with his maiden win here at Snetterton. And he takes the 40-minute enduro with a win by just 0.4 of a second. Steve Burgess hassled him right towards the line there, and Steve Burgess, this year's champion, comes through in what's going to be 2nd place. And Jack Manchester rounds off a great season with what we think may be his first podium of the year. Well done to Jack in car number 15. 4th place goes the way of John McLeod, just managed to hold off Bradley Smith to the line there by 1/10 of a second. It was unlucky for Bradley Smith after that last gasp move to try and get past Jack Lang. He comes through ahead of Brian Murphy. And an exuberant Jack Lang is down in Parc Ferme speaking with Alan Hyde.
Jack Lang is absolutely delighted with this, and so you should be. You needed to run over and have a hug.
That must have been the hardest race in my life.
I bet it was.
I knew the only way to beat Smith was to get him on the start. He was so much faster than me. I managed to defend. He pulled a good move on me. My team done a really good job in the pit stops to keep me ahead, and unfortunately he managed to get stuck behind Steve. And then the safety car came out, and
What did you think when the safety car came out?
I was so happy because I knew when the safety car come in, I only have to defend for 1 or 2 laps. Any more than that, it might have been a struggle. And then he was all over me, and I don't know what happened to him. We didn't touch, I don't think, but he broke quite late, and I'm not sure what happened. And then from there on, I was just nursing it to the finish.
So great way to end the season for Jack Lang. He is the winner, of course, for the final round of the Radical Challenge Championship. But the man who finished just behind him in 3rd place is Jack Manchester. He gets his bottle of bubbly from MSVR. 2nd place goes away of our champion for this year. He's pretty much done a great job towards the end of the season to wrap it up before this weekend. So he jumps onto the podium in 2nd place. But the man who, as we just heard, was very, very happy and he's going to be taking the top step of the podium is, of course, Jack Lang. And he'll, of course, work his way onto the top step of the podium. He won the race by just 0.4 of a second. One of the closest finishes here this weekend at Snetterton, as all the 3 drivers gather on the top step of the podium. And before we end, of course, the champagne will spray, and it's going to be our 2nd place man, Steve Burgess, who gets the cook-off first. And Jack Lang, he may have won the race, but he does struggle slightly there with the champagne.
And Jack still to get the cork out of the bottle.
Steve, a few thoughts at the end of the day, certainly losing light towards the end of that one.
Yeah, definitely there wasn't much light left, but I didn't have a very good race 1 and race 2, so it was nice to make up it in the last race.
It's nice to get on the podium, yeah. Can you help with what might have happened to Bradley Smith or not? We're trying to work it out.
Yeah, he had a lunge at Jack and braked himself and had a spin, so sent him off the track.
Key is just consistency, getting the laps in, just trying to focus on the last race, to be honest. I think that was where we knew we could be strongest. Right. So we did, and just put the consistent laps in, and the result came.
You most certainly were. Well done. Many congratulations to all 3 of you, and to our winner. Jack Lang makes his way off the top step of the podium. Oh, one more photograph, and I'm very pleased that we spoke to him. He's being lifted up. That's a great way to finish the day.
So that brings to close another fantastic racing season in the Radical Challenge Championship. There'll be more racing from Radicals in the Radical European Masters in a few weeks' time. You can catch it right here, live on Radical TV on the Radical website.